Welcome in to the PFF NFL betting show. Boys, it's the big one. Super Bowl Sunday is upon us. Mason Cameron, Ben Linsey, joining us remotely, Judah Fortgang. Judah, you're in town for the big game. Are you excited? Tell us a little bit about it.
Gonna be sweet. You know, I feel like there's a process that starts with the championship games where I'm kind of almost in mourning of the fact that you don't have football. But yeah, definitely in a pretty special way to send off the season. Excited to be here, and I think my initial impression of this game, kind of as I was thinking about it, was like, oh, I think this is probably gonna be a runaway Seahawks train. But to give, I guess, a little bit of a preview, I think it's somewhat sneaky here for the Pats, and I'm actually really excited to see how this game plays out.
I'm ready to hear some of your takes on this, and get some insight from Ben over here too, because we've been talking about this game a little bit. I think it has some potential to be a good one. I also think I share a little bit of the sentiment that it's going to be pretty strongly favored towards the Seahawks, given some of the things that we've seen from them. But boys, you guys ready to break this game down?
Let's do it.
Ben, let's start over with you. I want to go around the horn a little bit and just start off getting some of our takes on these two teams in general, and then we'll move into sort of our angles of attack for this game. We have a bunch of good angles to take on this one. Ben, start off, tell me a little bit about what you've seen from these two teams and sort of what you're expecting in this one.
Yeah, we spent towards the end of the regular season talking about how this Patriots offense hasn't really faced that much great competition, and then in the postseason they're going through the gauntlet, right? They play Houston, they play the Chargers, they play the Broncos, and now they get the Seahawks, who were first in the regular season in EPA per play allowed. So this is a big test, and this Patriots offense has not looked super sharp. They haven't really needed to so far this postseason. Granted, there was some bad weather in that Houston game. The Denver game turned into like pre-color film football in the second half with the snow. But this is a game where Drake May will have to play better. And if you look at the offense that has had the most success against the Seahawks defense late in the season, it's the Rams in that week. I think it was week 16, and then again the conference championship game. And really, when I'm looking at why that is, it's just because Matthew Stafford's a lunatic. I think like he's making these throws that most quarterbacks can't and won't attempt into tight windows. If you look at the All-22, like that Colby Parkinson big completion in the conference championship game, an insane throw. All right, and Puka Nacua has had a lot of success when most receivers haven't had any success against the Seahawks defense. I think in part because of the type of player that he is and his ability to make contested catches in tight windows. And I'm not really sold that Drake May and this Patriots receiving core can kind of win in the same ways. But I think it's going to be on them to do so, because it's going to be difficult to run against Seattle, and New England hasn't really had much success running the football all season. So I'm interested to kind of see how that part of the game plays out.
And I love your bringing up of the conference championship game there, because I think another, thing to note with that game is that if it weren't for a 15-yard taunting on a failed third down, that the Rams go out and score a 32-yard touchdown the next play, that game's 31-20. And I think that just shows how exceptional this Seahawks team has been. Judah, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing with these two teams. I mean, we've talked about them a lot leading up to this point because they've been a lot of our targets throughout the postseason. Tell us what you're seeing in this one.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of kind of central frames by which I'm viewing this game. The first is I anticipate each of these teams to struggle to run the ball, which I think is going to have a bunch of second-order effects. But this is a Seahawks run defense that was number one in rush success rate, number one in rush EPA. And then we've talked about this every week with the healthy Milton Williams, Robert Spillane. I mean, Robert Spillane actually, who really knows about his health, but I'm going to assume that he's a go here. This is a New England run defense that has been every bit as good. And even in this playoffs is allowing a 31% success rate, negative 0.23 EPA per rush. So I think there are kind of a lot of downstream effects of that, both for how this game plays out from a usage perspective and even like an efficiency if you take away the Seahawks' ability to run. I kind of share Ben's sentiment in that, like, what I still think is most likely to happen is the Patriots struggling to move the ball, but I also don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. And I also want to recognize exactly what Ben did bring up, which is like game state does in some ways dictate, how aggressive you have to be, how aggressive you want to be. And the Patriots had no real need to, push the gas against Denver. They just wanted to a shell in the fourth quarter because however bad their shell was, it was better than the Broncos. And you kind of, I think, saw that at play. And this is still, to Ben's point, like, I don't think that the Patriots are going to win in exactly the same way as the Rams could, but this is still a very talented team. And like, just because we saw Drake May's kind of lower percentile performance doesn't mean we're not going to see a terrific game in the Super Bowl. I think all of that is at play. And when you look at kind of the profile of quarterback, like, Drake May has done an incredible job at a couple of things this season. Number one, throwing the ball downfield. He's been the best deep passer in the NFL by kind of any measure. This is a Seahawks team that, whereas they're number 1, 2, or 3 in kind of most statistical categories, they have been susceptible to explosive plays. It's not as though they're a dominant team that fully eliminates them. Since over the second half of the season, this is a team that's like 15th in explosive plays. Now, granted, a lot of that is the Rams, but even not accounting for those games, it's still a team that's like 10th best in explosive plays. Number 2 is no one's talked about the Patriots defense. And like, is it possible that's all a function of opponents? Yes. Is this a team that also over the second half of the season is number 1 in yards per dropback allowed, number 1 in EPA per play allowed? Yes. And like, there is, and they've been blitzing extremely, extremely well. And have like generated pressure on their blitzes at the second highest rate in the NFL. Is there a world in which you eliminate the Seahawks run game and you put Sam Darnold under a bunch of disruption, which is an area where the Patriots have been the top 3 in the NFL, especially over the second half of the season? Is there a world in which that shuts down the Seahawks offense? Yes. And I think kind of the common narrative that we've seen the last couple of playoff games be such that the Patriots offense has been bad and we're going to downplay the defense. Like, I think that can very much invert itself. And we can kind of be saying the same things about the Seahawks if this Patriots defense is a lot better. And it's kind of a problem of you can't get much better than 4.5 yards per dropback in the NFL, no matter who the opponents are. Now, like, we don't really know how much of that is opponent influence, but in one game, there's certainly a path to the Patriots defense being a lot better than people think, and this kind of matchup actually working really well in their favor.
I love your take on that, because I really love what we do here in terms of what we do here on the show, what we do here at PFF, because there is so many numbers. There's a ton of data at your fingertips. We can take so many different aspects of the game and turn it into raw numbers. But at the end of the day, it is stuff like that where providing that context, which is our job, which is what we do up here on camera every single day, that's where I think it really sets what we do apart here. I want to bring up a topic where, as you just mentioned, Judah, these are both 2 very good teams. Both teams in the top 10 in team offensive grade and EPA per play throughout the season. Both teams in the top 10 in defensive grade and EPA per play allowed this season. And these are the 2 teams that stand above everybody else in the NFL in cover rate. So these 2 teams are covering games at the highest rates in the NFL. I think there is a key difference in these 2 teams. And I think that all lies in the context of those metrics. We've talked about the strength of schedule. The strength of schedule has been a huge topic for this game. And I think it bears some keeping in mind for this matchup, particularly when we talk about the strength of schedule with these 2 teams. Seattle, 11th most difficult schedule in the NFL this season. And I mean, it's easy to see why. They played in a very difficult division in the NFC West. And not only that, I think their road to the playoffs, Ben, as you mentioned, the Patriots, they had a very tough road with a lot of tough defenses in the postseason. I also think it's a very difficult task to go up and have 3 divisional games against 2 of your division rivals, as Seattle did through the postseason, and come out on top. And not only come out on top, but more or less dominate in a lot of facets of those games. So when I see that, I looked into the numbers a little bit more. And I found out that Seattle is the first team since the 2016 New England Patriots champions to have an 84-plus grade in offense, defense, and special teams. That's impressive, especially considering what we've seen out of their schedule. Those are one of those situations where I think that is what gives them sort of the leg up in a matchup like this, whereas the grades are the grades, the metrics are the metrics, but it is our sort of duty to help provide context within those. And I think when you combine those two factors together, this is a very strong lean, and I can understand why a line like 4.5 on a neutral field is a strong indication for a team like the Patriots. And I can see why some people are saying, oh, that's too many points. We can see some situations where the Patriots can be successful. And we'll get into more of those here in a little bit when we talk about some of our angles of attack. But this is one of those situations where I think all-encompassing, this Seahawks team has been very impressive this season. And they've had really an outcome of being more than just a sum of their parts. And I really like to see what they're going to be able to accomplish in this game. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I can't wait to break it down a little bit more with you boys. So we are going to start with our game market bets of the week. But of course, we got to mention, if you guys want to stay on tap with all of this data that we're talking about, every single number, make sure you head over to subscribe.pff.com and get yourself a PFF Plus subscription right now. That's going to get you access to the data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and all of our betting tools, the player prop tool, the new first touchdown finder, and everything in between. So make sure you guys head over there and get your subscription to PFF Plus today. All right. We're heading into the meat of this thing, boys. We've already talked about some of our key angles in this one. Judah, I want to start with you. Go ahead and break it down for me. Give me your game market bet of the week for this matchup. Tell me which way you're leaning. Tell me what you're seeing in this one and how you're going to be attacking it.
Yeah, it's not a spot that I love on any of the main lines. I think if I had to choose something given where the market's pricing, I would go with the Patriots money line at the current prices, and you can find some into the 200s there. And it's kind of exactly what I outlined, which is I think there's a world in which the Patriots defense in particular is materially underrated, and Drake May has not been good in at least in the playoffs in what you can call like the in-system type of plays, which is like when he's not creating, his offensive line has not been particularly great. Will Campbell's really struggled in the playoffs in particular, and like that subset of plays, he has not been able to take advantage of. And I think there's no reason to think that in particular is a spot he's going to be successful. But an area where he still has been good and has kind of going back to the regular season allowed for a lot of his dominance is his ability to create. He's got one of the highest create rates in the NFL. I believe he's third in that category. And that is kind of the antidote to disruption, which is what makes so much of the Seahawks pass defense valuable. They're number one in the NFL there. But he can create out of structure, and especially if a lot of those plays where he's extending the pocket end up in some deep passes, that kind of is the area where the Seahawks are, I think, going to struggle. But ultimately, it's a question of where the markets have these teams. And I think it's an overreaction to a lot of kind of whatever, you can put a narrative to it on the schedule. But I think it kind of works in both directions. And I think that this Patriots defense might be a little bit better than we think and might match up a little bit better with the Seahawks offense, especially if they struggle to move the ball running. I think the Patriots can kind of come out of here with an ugly one.
I definitely see a position, as you're saying. I think one of the things that I'm going to be extremely interested in for this game is the health of Robert Spillane. Dealing with the hamstring, he was missing from practice the prior week. He was a DNP to start the week. I think he put in a limited participation yesterday, so we'll see really how it shakes out. I have a few concerns if he's not 100%, given their metrics with him on and off the field stopping the run are pretty glaring. It's something we've talked about quite a bit leading up to this point. So that's going to be definitely a key measure, a key injury that I'm watching in this one. It might be one of the more important injuries of this game, because Spillane, top 10 among linebackers in run defense grade. I mean, he has been really the driving force of what's been able to help them stop the run. Now, Milton Williams, obviously that's another name that we've talked about. He's been super important for their ability to stop the run as well. Spillane's going to be one of those guys that if he's off the field or if he's not 100%, that is a little bit of a worry for me when it comes to talking about Seattle's ability to run the football, because we know they want to run the football. They have one of the highest run percentage rates in the NFL, so that's going to be a situation definitely worth watching for. Ben, when you see this game and you're attacking it, I know you have a measure on these defenses as well. What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, I think it's two very good defenses. Seattle, kind of self-explanatory, but to a lot of the points Judah's made, the New England defense has been very good too. Right? These are two of the top 3 defenses in the league by EPA per play this season when you include the playoffs. And I like the under 45.5 at minus 110. And it's really just a function of the defenses, but also this, like the expected game script with Seahawks as 4.5-point favorites playing from ahead. We've seen the Seahawks run the ball at a super high rate when they're playing with a lead. They can get pretty conservative. To their credit, they didn't necessarily against the Rams, but I think that's because you know that the Rams can put up points, and they have against them. I think against this Patriots team, like we can see a situation where if they're playing with a lead, they get pretty conservative, they run the ball, it's not successful, we get a lot of punts. And then on the other side, with New England potentially playing in a deficit, you get more obvious passing situations. The left side with the rookies on this New England offensive line has struggled. This is a very good Seahawks pass rush, and we've seen Drake May take sacks. All right, so I think there's a situation, if the game script plays out as expected and Seattle is playing from ahead, that this game kind of slows down and we get a lower scoring game in kind of the base version of this matchup.
You know, and I like your point there. We talk about, I think one of the things that is getting a lot of attention is those rookies on the left side of that offensive line for the Patriots. I think what isn't getting enough attention is how much of that pressure is actually attributed to Drake May as well. And his pressure to sack percentage is exceedingly high. It's at 45.5% this postseason. He's been pressured on over 30% of his dropbacks. And of those pressured dropbacks, 45% are resulting in sacks. He has 15 sacks this postseason. Not only that, he's putting the ball in danger a little bit. He has 5 fumbles. He's put 5 of them on the ground. So that's going to be another big key in this game and something that I'm going to be watching for. And I think that that's going to be a big topic for this game. We talked about their abilities to run the football and stop the run. And I think that that's going to put the game into a pass-heavy situation. And when we look at this situation where if our guys in the control room here, if they filter it by the quarterback percentage number, we're going to see Drake May near the top of the league in pressures that are credited to himself at over 22%. That becomes an important facet of this game because I think a lot of people, when we think about pressure, we think about, okay, your O-line broke down and pressure got back there and disrupted your quarterback. But that's why it's important to add context to some of the things that we see on the field when watching the game. So here at PFF, when we grade these games, not every pressure is attributed to poor blocking. Sometimes it comes down to guys holding the ball. Sometimes it comes down to guys dropping too far back into the pocket where their tackles can't properly protect them. Sometimes it comes down to vacating a clean pocket or running into pressure. Now, those are situations where we've seen May actually be attributed to a lot of this pressure. And I think that that could be a big issue when we come up against a front that we're going to see in Seattle, that not only are they a really good team at pressuring, but they're also doing it without blitzing. They stunt a lot. They find ways to get pressure without dedicating extra bodies to the pass rush. And when we talk about that, that's a recipe for May to potentially hold on to the ball longer and create situations that aren't favorable for him. So that's going to be another spot where I'm really interested in watching that aspect. And that sort of leads me into where I'm seeing this game play out. I hold a sentiment that I think that the Seattle Seahawks are a rung above the Patriots. I think the Patriots' run to this Super Bowl has been phenomenal. I think that they're well worth their flowers, and they're going to be a very good team moving forward. And I think they have a lot of talent on this roster. But I think that when you come up against Seattle, they've been on an absolute tear. One of the things we've talked about in the postseason is how they've thrown the ball a little bit more, and how where it's come out, they've dominated teams. They're the only team this season to have a margin of victory above 10 points. They're above 12. That's exceedingly high. They covered both of their playoff games. We talked about it. -7 against San Francisco. They won that game 41-6. -2.5 versus the Rams. Obviously a game that we thought was going to be hotly contested. And, I mean, it ended up being a pretty close matchup. But as I mentioned earlier, that game could have potentially ended 31-20 if Reek Woolen wasn't flagged for taunting after a stop on 3rd and 12 that ended up resulting in a Rams score. So now those are all situations and could have been, should have been, whatever. But I think when we talk about the matchup itself, Seattle's offense obviously centers on the running game. They're near the top of the NFL in run percentage, as we mentioned, and that actually feeds into their play action. It allows them to really uncork some of these shots. That's where JSN is really able to attack downfield. I think he is also going to be a key in this game. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that's going to bring a big key to the Robert Spillane injury. Top 10 in run defense grade at the position. When he missed those 4 games to close out the regular season, it was a massive, massive hit to New England's run defense. Just him alone there. Those splits where he's on and off the field, I wrote about it a little bit over on PFF.com. You guys can go check that out to see the table itself. But that's a situation where they go from being top 5 in the NFL in yards per attempt allowed on designed runs and EPA per play allowed on designed runs to bottom 10 in the league in both of those facets. So that's going to be an interesting situation. Obviously, it picked up in the playoffs. I think there's also something to be said about the offenses that they played in the playoffs. Obviously, solid defenses. They won those games. You know, we're talking about offenses that haven't really been terribly strong, sort of at the middle or underneath the league average in EPA per play. And we talk about the Chargers. They were really struggling on offensive line. Herbert dealing with the injury. You could tell that hand, he was protecting it at a lot of points. We talk about Stroud, weather in that game as well. We talk about the Broncos, Jarrett Stidham, the weather in that game as well. I think some of those facets also helped boost some of the Patriots' metrics in defense on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that this is going to be their toughest matchup to date when we look at that in a nutshell. And not really a favorable matchup, in my opinion, on New England's side of the ball either. I know, as you said, Judah, Seattle has sort of struggled a little bit more than they did previously in the year with their explosive plays. But again, I think that that is more attributed to the opponent with the Rams. But as well, I think that, you know, the Patriots, obviously a very good team throwing the ball down the field. I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble with this one. They're 4th in percentage of passes targeted 20 or more yards downfield. 3rd in explosive play. Seattle is 3rd in explosive play rate allowed over the course of the entire season. And as I mentioned, with the pressure rate, I think that that could really be an issue for May. So those are going to be things that I'm watching for in this game. And, you know, it's going to be an interesting battle, to say the least. Are you guys seeing anything that I might have missed in that one?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you covered a lot of the points made sense. Right? I tend to think that Seattle, like, I don't love the spread on either side. If I had to pick a side, I'd probably pick Seattle. But I think this is going to be a lower scoring game where one team doesn't pull super far ahead for most of it.
Yeah, could definitely be an interesting one, to say the least. Judah, anything else you're seeing in this one from a overall game matchup?
No.
Awesome. Well, we're going to head into our player prop markets of the week. And of course, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, make sure you go see the new PFF player prop tool that has been on fire this season, and check it out right now.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff. Because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
And of course, if you guys want access to that, like I said, make sure you go over and get your subscription to PFF Plus now. All right, boys. Player prop bets of the week, the ones we're targeting. Ben, I'm going to start over with you. This is something that you wrote about that's going to be coming out with one of your bets of the week. This is another one that the tool has liked in particular. Tell us a little bit about what you're targeting here.
Yeah, I'm on Drake May over 30.5 attempts at -109. And it's a lot of what we've talked about already. Like I think it's going to be difficult for this New England offense to get much going on the ground. And it's going to be on Drake May to pass a lot. And I think there's a chance that the Patriots get pretty high pass volume here for a couple reasons. One, the Seattle offense, for as good as it's been for a lot of the season, is not really an offense that moves the ball down the field methodically and sustains long drives. They're 25th in the league in drives, plays per drive. Right? It's a lot of explosive plays. There's potential to get short fields with turnovers, given what we've seen with May fumbling this year. They also don't allow a lot of downfield passes. They have some against the Rams, but in general, they typically force teams to throw the ball underneath. Talked a lot of the season about Seattle funneling targets to running backs and tight ends. They've allowed the third lowest average depth of target in the NFL this season. So that means that if the Patriots are moving the ball, it's going to be most likely on shorter passes, which raises the chance for this attempts over. So I think there's, in the expected game state where Seattle is winning, New England's playing from behind, they're not able to run the ball super well. And we haven't really seen New England in a ton of negative game scripts to what Judah was talking about. Like they could play conservatively for a lot of this postseason because the offense on the other side of the field hasn't been doing anything. All right, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case with Seattle. So I think there's a chance we see one of the higher attempt output games for May that we've seen this season. And the prop tool likes the value on the over. I like the value on the over at 30.5.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, Ben, when we talk about them funneling plays into the passing game because of this run defense, it's actually equated to over 35 attempts per game on average. So you could potentially be getting a value here with that measure where we see this game potentially going in that direction. Judah, do you see anything else on that facet? Do you agree that this is probably going to be a game? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but a game where, both of these guys could potentially throw the ball. I know you have an SGP angle on that a little bit later that we'll get into, but what's your take on sort of the passing volumes for both of these?
Yeah, I mean, that is the SGP angle. Exactly what you said. I also think with the Patriots in particular, Drake May has not thrown so many passes. Number one, obviously they've been leading in a bunch of games. Number two, the completion percentage has been extremely high, which is going to keep the clock running. And I think that the ability to complete, the percentage, 70+ percentage passes as he has this season is unlikely to sustain itself in a game against the Seahawks, which would further increase the attempts here.
I like it. Judah, go ahead and while I've got you here, let's jump in to what you're targeting this week for your player prop.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker under 71.5 yards. The line has come down a bit. I still think it will trickle down. It's a function of a lot of the things we've already talked about. This has been a Patriots run defense that has been with the right personnel, and I do anticipate Robert Williams being a full go. That has been every bit as good as the Seahawks, and it's somewhat scary in that Kenneth Walker is going to share a huge amount of the workload here. But I don't think this is a spot where he's going to be very efficient at all, and is really going to need a lot of carries to get there. And I don't see that against this Patriots defense, and especially if the Patriots are playing a little better than I think the market anticipates. It's a spot where I think Seattle can turn like they did against the Rams a bit past that here.
It is a tough draw for Walker to be, given so much of this workload, given how they really spread that out with Charbonnet throughout the season. That's a really tough loss for them in this matchup, and just particularly down the stretch of this postseason run that, they performed relatively well when they didn't have him there, but sometimes the other shoe has to drop. So that is going to be a very interesting note in this game as well. And then another one, as I've sort of mentioned, talking about this game, I think the angle that I'm really interested in is playing some of the sack production in this game. DeMarcus Lawrence 1+ sack plus 114 is going to be an angle that I take. As I mentioned, May pressured on 32% of his dropbacks this postseason, 15 sacks. That's 5 in each game. And of course, the most alarming is the 45% pressure to sack rate. That's double or nearly double any other quarterback this postseason. And again, it is a function of the defensives they've played, with every team holding relatively high pressure rates. And I think that's going to be a similar situation here with this matchup. Will Campbell, we mentioned, he's taking a lot of heat in this postseason, and it's understandable given some of his reps against these high caliber pass rushers. But 39.8 pass blocking grade is a tough look in that facet. But really, I mean, it's, as we mentioned, May shares in some of that responsibility with the owned pressures, that 4th highest pressure rate credited to him out of all qualifying quarterbacks. And I think that leaves an opportunity for Seattle to rack up the sack production. And I mean, when we look at Lawrence, he's been playing at a high level. He leads Seattle in playoff pressures, an 11.0 pass rush productivity, which is very strong. And he rushes from both sides, so he will see Campbell. And he runs that looper on those stunts, so he is going to have some opportunity at some free rushes on that left side of the offensive line with those two rookies. They're going to have to communicate very well to be able to take credit for that, to take account for that. And also, I think his potential to maybe get a strip sack in this game is up there. It's at 11-1. He has one in each of these playoff games. He's been hunting the ball in these high leverage games. And as I mentioned, May, he's been struggling to keep the ball in his hands. He's put 5 on the ground this postseason. So that's going to be another angle that I'm really interested in watching in this one. What other angles are you interested in playing? Any other angles? What other sort of second order effects are you interested in targeting, Ben, with this matchup potentially with the high passing volume that we might see in this game?
Yeah, I like Ramondre Stevenson receptions as well, because what I've mentioned with the funneling targets to running backs and tight ends. I think that makes some sense. I talked about it a little bit on the Wednesday show, but kind of a novelty prop I like is Demario Douglas to record the most yak on a single catch of any player in this game at 20-1. And that is based on the next gen yak numbers, but he has potential to get it on a bigger play over the middle of the field where he catches the ball in space. They also get the ball to him on bubble screens, right? So that's kind of ties into the attempts if they're throwing the ball more. Seattle kind of forces targets underneath. Potential for 1 to 2 screen passes to Demario Douglas, where he can catch the ball and pick up some yards after the catch. So I like that price. Just looking at what he's done yak-wise in terms of big yak plays is pretty comparable to a lot of these top receivers, and you get the 20-1 there.
Love it. Judah, final notes. Any other sort of props that you think might come to fruition in this one?
No, I think it's the rushing unders. Nothing really beyond that. And I love like a lot of these alts and some of the SGPs we're going to talk about.
All right. Well, let's jump into it. We're going to jump into our SGPs, but of course, we've got to talk about our game plan of the week, which is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today, knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. And of course, the protection is going to be a big one in this game, of course. And Judah, we already alluded to the fact that you're in on the passing volumes in this game. Go ahead and let's rip the Band-Aid off. Tell us a little bit about the SGP angle that you're going to be taking on this one. And of course, if you guys don't check out all of Judah's work over on PFF.com, he writes up SGPs every single week. So make sure you guys go check him out.
We've got no player to rush for 60 yards and then 32 attempts for each of the quarterbacks at 22-1. And I think it is really the value here lies in what happens should no player rush for 60 yards. And the truth is there really is like kind of competition for 3 guys, maybe 4, depending on if Travion Henderson gets any work. But if you took the unders on Walker and Stevenson and parlay these attempts, you're getting like 12-1. And I think really what this comes down to here, and mind you, Stevenson can get 54 yards, 55, 56 as part of this parlay. What this comes down to is, okay, we talked about the rush defenses. Let's take that assumption as some value here. Like what happens is a second order effect. And I think the game might be slow, but I think there are going to be a lot of or more plays. And each of these teams, number one, are going to pass more often because the denominator of plays is going to be larger by virtue of the teams not running the ball as well. And then number two, the percentage of that denominator by virtue of not running the ball well is also going to increase, I think, i.e. the run pass rates. And I think the market is kind of treating these as neutral, where if no player gets 60 yards, then who knows if that's a function of like a really slow game or not. And I kind of take the opposite side here, which is if no one's running the ball well, the teams are going to be passing. I don't know how efficient they'll be, but if anything, that kind of adds to the attempt numbers here.
I like it. I mean, I definitely see where that could be a game script that is going to play out where there is that difficult running and it's going to lead into that passing volume. Ben, we'll jump over to you here. Do you see any other sort of insight with that passing game volume? I know you have some angles here, and let's jump into your SGB too while we're at it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. That's exactly the kind of game that I think is going to happen. I have a slightly different way of looking at it, and my SGP is May 260 plus passing, Shaheed 30 plus longest reception, under 45.5 for the game, and that is 60-1. And I kind of talked about the general thesis that I want to build SGPs around in this game is that Seattle is able to build a lead on low play volume, which provides high passing volume for New England. Right? So there's there's a couple ways that happens on the Seattle side. One, you get explosive plays in the passing game, which reduces the total number of plays and results in points for the Seahawks. So that is the Shaheed 30-plus longest reception part of it. You can build it different ways. If you replace Shaheed with JSN, it's 20-1. You can also potentially, if you want to get weird with it, add a Seahawks defensive touchdown, and that is 150-1 with the JSN. It's 300-1 with Shaheed. Like, if Seattle is scoring on defense, they're naturally, New England's just going to have higher play volume, and it correlates well with May passing. And the May 260 plus passing, like, I don't necessarily love that just by itself. Right? Our data science team and Kevin Hogan have done some work on just like kind of showing the overall distributions for these bets, and May 260 plus passing is about even with the market odds based on our projections versus the pricing. But I think that is happening more often in this scenario where Seattle is either hitting explosives, or they're scoring on defense, or they're returning a kickoff for a touchdown, or one of these types of things. So I like the idea in general of playing this in a lower scoring game, which boosts the odds of Seattle either hitting explosives in the passing game, or scoring on defense, or forcing turnovers to get short fields. Like, I would like, you could add potentially forced fumbles, strip sacks into this if you can. I don't think, I was trying to look into doing that, but I don't know if that's SGP-able necessarily, but I would if I could. And then pairing that with kind of this high output May passing game. And the other part of this is New England's been one of the more aggressive teams in the league in terms of going for fourth down when they should. And that's, you can look at that two ways. You can look at that like, yes, they're if they convert those, they're more likely to score touchdowns, which is bad for the under in this sense. But there's also the chance that if they're super aggressive and they're not converting these fourth downs against a good defense, you get this May passing yardage to move them down the field, and it results in no points. So I think that there's a couple different ways you can build around this story, but I like May 260 plus passing, Shaheed 30 plus longest reception, under 45.5 for the game at 60-1.
I also looked for the strip sack potential there too, and it was not SGP-able, unfortunately. But I like your angle on this, and a big shout out to Kevin Hogan who built that tool for us there that shows a lot of the potential edges and values on some of those alt lines, which allows you to push a line like May passing up. Another one that Kevin highlighted with that is actually the head-to-head line with May to have more passing yardage than Darnold. And I like the potential for something like that because of the things that we've talked about, where May can push the volume up, and it's going to equate to this yardage potential here for that one. So I do like the angle that you're taking on that. And at 60-1, it's a good price. For myself, I'm going in a little bit different direction. A similar direction, but I'm going to be pushing this game out, Seattle minus 6.5, considering how dominant I've seen them play throughout this postseason against some very high-tier opponents. I am confident that they could potentially push this to a full 7. I'm liking May 34-plus passing attempts, as we talked about, 35 per game on average facing the Seattle defense. As we've also mentioned throughout this postseason, throughout a lot of this season, Seattle's defense funnels plays to the tight end. So I'm going to be taking Hunter Henry 60-plus receiving yards. And then I'm going to cap it off with DeMarcus Lawrence 2 sacks. I wanted to take DeMarcus Lawrence with a sack fumble, but of course that was not SGP-able. And I think it just goes to a lot of things that we've been saying. The passing volume is going to be exceedingly high in this game. And when we see the tight ends potentially being involved, Seattle, 28th in receiving yardage allowed to the position this season. They allowed 59 to Tonjes in the wild card round, 62 to Parkinson in the divisional round. And while it was a while ago, it is a similar defensive structure. The last time these teams played, early 2024, Henry had 109 yards against this defense. And obviously a lot has changed, but that defensive philosophy remains that consistent piece. And as we continue to mention, as I've said, I really like what Lawrence's potential is in this game. I think that he, out of anybody, has the highest potential to reach that 2-sack threshold. So that's going to be one of the angles that I'm taking on that one. And of course, that one is 60-1 as well. And you can, again, build these to your flavor here, go up or down. That's sort of just the angle that I'm liking and targeting in this game. And boys, that does it for our SGPs. We've got a little fun one here that we could potentially talk about too at the end here. And I want to get your guys' quick opinions on a couple of props, maybe some novelties, some exotics. But I want to start off with your knee-jerk reactions to your MVP potential. Ben, I know we talked about this a little bit in our video we recorded earlier in the week, but why don't you give us a recap on who you're potentially targeting for MVP?
Yeah, I'm personally not going to bet MVP, but I think my favorite is just Darnold at plus 115, and it's not super exciting, but I like the Seahawks to win this game. Quarterbacks have won 14 of the last 20 games, and just like the Seahawks are implied on the money line about 70% to win. 14 out of 20, if you're just looking at history, is 70%. That's about 49%, right, if you're saying those two are independent. And the price implies 46.5%. So I think you're getting a little bit of value. And there's also the narrative aspect where I think the biggest story coming in the Super Bowl is this Sam Darnold redemption arc. And that does play a role, right? So I think if his stat line is reasonable and the Seahawks end up winning this game, he's clearly the most likely to win. And I think the price is good enough to bet that. It's a potential way to bet the Seahawks to win the game without betting spread or money line as well and getting better odds.
And I know we talked about it already a little bit, but you're also taking Pop Douglas. I love that the Super Bowl gives us the opportunity to bet on some NGS data, which is always a lot of fun. You're taking Pop Douglas to have the longest single yak reception of this game. Any other novelties, exotics, anything else you're targeting in this one, Ben?
Yeah, one I liked that was also in some of the work that Kevin did on the exotics is just betting the Triple Crown most passing, receiving, rushing yards in the game, and that is Drake May passing yards, JSN receiving yards, Kenneth Walker rushing yards, and I believe that was plus 450. And really the thought there is the Seahawks offense is super concentrated around JSN and Kenneth Walker, and the Patriots passing offense, I like the volume on that side more with Drake May, but they're going to spread the ball around more to Hunter Henry, to the backs, to Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Mac Hollins, Pop Douglas, right? So I think there's a chance that May ends up with more yards than Sam Darnold, but JSN and Kenneth Walker end up with the most receiving and rushing yards respectively. And you can see here that the price there is $450. We put it with our projections at around $359 for the fair price. So you're getting a little bit of value on that one.
Love it, love it. And Judah, same question for you as well, my friend. Let's start with MVP. Any names you're specifically targeting in this one?
No, I think it's Sam Darnold also. I think JSN's needing a lot of work, and he would really need to have a particularly special game, I think, to win MVP. And I think it is most likely the Seahawks win. And at this point, I think the narrative and even how I anticipate this game playing out, I think it's going to be a Sam Darnold MVP in most Seahawks wins.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, the quarterback of the winning team is the Super Bowl MVP the vast majority of the time. When we look at the guys that didn't win or that weren't quarterbacks to win Super Bowl MVP, there's two receivers in the last 10 years. They were guys that had big time plays, game defining plays, and large stat lines. That was the situation. We had Cooper Kupp, we had Julian Edelman. We obviously know what they were able to accomplish in those games. And of course, when we look at the defensive side of the ball, there's only been 2 in the last 20 years. We had Malcolm Smith, we had Von Miller, and both of those guys also had game defining plays as well. So really, I mean, it makes sense that we're looking at a potential quarterback on the winning team here. If you do want to play sort of the lower guys on this list, I think it's better to sort of piece some of them together, use a Dutching calculator with what you're willing to stake on that to get sort of a better output within a few guys. And then, you have that opportunity with the quarterback as well. Judah, is there any other bets that you're taking in this one in terms of novelties, exotics, anything else?
No, I initially had the line that's been completely nuked here. Some Rashid Shaheed most rushing yards, which I kind of another way of saying each team on the ball was like 1.5 to 1. That has kind of been neutered down to a spot where I don't really love. But I do like Ben's kind of triple crown call out there. That was one I was eyeing as well.
Yeah, I definitely that would be an interesting game to say the least if Rashid Shaheed were to lead in rushing yardage, and might be a path for some potential money making if they didn't nuke the price. That might be something that we shop around for when we get off air here. See if we can't find it anywhere. But yeah, no, I like the angles there as well. Another one. Like I said, you get NGS data, which is an awesome ad for the Super Bowl here. One of the ones that I was actually taking is Drake May over 18.5 miles per hour on his fastest rush, minus 105. He's a guy that can scoop, man. He's topped out at 20 this season. He's had, I think it was 6 carries of over 18.5 yards this postseason. He's hit it over in every single postseason game. I think he's going to have to be running a lot. He hit 19 miles per hour 3 different times during that conference championship game. So I'm liking some potential there for Drake May to have to scoot just a little bit. And boys, I think that about does it for us. Any other closing notes that we have for this game, Ben? Anything you guys want to say before we sign off for the last time of the 2025 season?
No, thanks for listening, everyone. It's been a fun year. To Judah's point, there's a little bit of mourning that comes with the Super Bowl, but Mason and I will be around for the Super Bowl watch along. So hopefully, if you're looking for some live bets there, we'll shout them out.
Yeah, most definitely. Make sure you guys check us out for the Super Bowl watch along. Judah, same question to you. Any parting words for the folks after a great 2025 season?
Yeah, like Ben, thank you guys for listening, and to you fellas, thank you for joining. I always had a great time every Friday morning. Hopefully get to run it back again next year.
It's going to be a good time. Can't wait. And of course, for everybody at home, make sure you guys go get your subscriptions to PFF Plus. We really appreciate everything that you guys have done for us, coming along for the ride, getting to watch us up here, talking about the game. We absolutely love it. And of course, for Ben Linsey, for Judah Fortgang, for our guys behind the glass, Eli, Tyler, Quinn, I'm Mason Cameron. And until next season, everybody, good night.